Hello, everybody. Mike Donahue here, and I'm the director of Value Up, a motivational company that's been around since 2004. And you are on the Value Up Culture Building System courses. There's 9 of them. You're in the first one right now. And before we get started, I wanted to say this to you. I am a huge fan. I don't know you personally. I don't know who's watching this right now, but I'm a huge fan of teachers for 2 reasons. One, because I work with you. I've been in schools speaking and working with communities for the last 22, 23 years, and it's been great. Love it. But the second reason, and probably the most important reason, is that if it wasn't for teachers, I wouldn't be here right now. I'm going to show you a picture here. This is 4 teachers that pretty much changed my life. I went through a crisis in high school where I was emancipated as a minor, so I lived in my own apartment. And these 4 teachers, these 4 individuals, pretty much helped me get through a really tough time in my life. So I know that being a teacher is not just teaching a class. Like, these guys were, they were my teachers. They taught me stuff, but they also were there for me. They helped me get through. They took a vested interest in Mike Donahue. And I know you can't do that for every kid, but you do it for a lot of kids, and that means a lot. And coming from somebody who wouldn't be here, like I said, if it wasn't for teachers, I just want to say thank you to you for choosing this profession and choosing to be involved in helping students assimilate information and be a part of that learning process in their lives. So thank you so much. Let me tell you a little bit about me. It's all about me, Mike Donahue. I am like I said, a motivational speaker. I came from South Boston. That's where I grew up. I grew up in Massachusetts, and my dad left when I was 5. My mom was really not fit to have children, in my opinion. She came from a long line of abuse. So my great-grandmother abused my grandfather. My grandfather abused my mom, and it just trickled down into us. So that statement, hurt people. We hear this a lot in church and education situations, but that applied to me. I mean, my situation was that my mom came from a long line of hurt and abuse and pain, and she just passed it on to us. And was 4 of us in our family, and so it was pretty rough. Like I said earlier, I was emancipated my sophomore year. There was a incident where my mom and I got in a fight, and she was hitting me with a stick. I grabbed the stick out of her hand. When I grabbed it out of her hand, I didn't realize that she had placed a knife next to the stick, so it cut my hand. And so if I stopped this story right now and I told you that was the end of that, that's still a pretty messed up story, but it didn't end there. Stick hits the ground. I'm looking at my hand because it's bleeding. Next thing I know, in a fit of insanity, she tried to put the knife through my head. And I always tell kids when I tell that story that wasn't the worst day of my life. The worst day of my life was when I had to go to school the next day and act like that didn't happen. And so a big motivator for me to get into schools is to talk to kids on that day, right? You don't know if they're having that kind of day or not. And so that was my background. And like I said, those teachers played a huge role in helping me get through. I ended up graduating from high school. So I left Boston, went into the United States Air Force, was stationed at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. And to be honest with you, when I landed in Nebraska, it was such a big difference between Boston, the city, ocean, New Hampshire had mountains, to, corn, cows, and weird smells. But actually, my Nebraska experience ended up being really good. I was 19, partying and that kind of stuff. But then this girl came up to me one day, and everybody knew who she was. She's really pretty. And she walked up, she goes, "Hey, do you want to go to church with me?" And this isn't a church talk, but first of all, she came up to me and she was beautiful. So I was like, yeah, I'd probably join a cult with you. So I ended up joining this youth group, and I'm not going to talk about the spiritual part of it, but the relational part of that youth group changed my life. It was the first time in my life that I really saw that I had value. It was the way they treated me, and I the way I saw myself. Again, value up is what happened. I began to value me, so everything took on a whole new meaning for value. Like I valued other people for the first time in my life because I valued me. And so that was a really important part of my story. I wanted to be a youth pastor. I did my 4 years in the military, and then I got out and I started being a youth pastor. And was great. My first job was at a Christian school up in Rockford, Illinois. I worked as the assistant youth pastor in the youth group, but also my main job every day was to work in this Christian school. So you're going to hear a lot of references to that school as I'm talking about these principles. But that was a great experience for me. I loved it. I was there for 5 years, learned a lot of really cool things about culture and how to implement, good culture, how to, capitalize on kids' equity, on student, social equity, and, put it to work for you. And again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be talking about. It was a great experience. Left there, went to Denver, Colorado. I was there for 4 years, 3 or 4 years. And I left there, went back to Bellevue. The Bellevue Church hired me back. So 10 years later, I went back to the Bellevue Church, and I was the youth pastor there. The year after I was there, Columbine happened. And it just so happened that 2 of the kids that were killed in the Columbine tragedy were in my prior youth group in Denver. And so Cassie Brunell and Rachel Scott, crazy experience for me. I mean, I just, it was just awful, what happened. But knowing those 2 kids and knowing Craig Scott, who was Rachel's brother, who was in the library as well, he didn't die, but he was severely, wounded and, emotionally, and it's just crazy. It was a crazy time. So I basically wanted to get into schools. I love my job as a youth pastor, but I really wanted to get into schools and talk to kids about value. Because what I was seeing, and I don't want to get into the weeds on the Columbine thing, but basically what I was seeing was, there was a value issue in that school. Kids didn't value themselves and they didn't value others. Obviously, those 2 boys that, took all the lives that day, and meant to do more, actually, didn't see value in themselves and didn't see value in others. And so I was like, geez, you know what? Let's put something together that brings this message without religion into the school to help kids see that they have value. There's a few people that actually like me. This guy here, his name is Matt Hamilton. He's the NEA Foundation National Teacher of the Year. He's a good friend of mine, actually. Matt's a great guy. He said this. He said, "We have implemented most of the concepts of the Value Up Culture Building course over the past few years at East Jordan Middle School in Michigan. It has been an absolute game changer for us. This stuff is gold." Well, it's gold because Matt has helped me a lot put this stuff together. But this is Tom Osborne. Those of you that are from Nebraska are going to recognize this guy's face. I got to work with him after he coached for Nebraska football. He was a congressman and hired our company to come in and work with leaders and work with some of his staff to bring a message in. So he basically said this: Mike's insight and expertise at knowing what the root issues were with teenagers was instrumental in our success in stemming the tide of methamphetamine use in our state. Whatever Mike Donahue writes about connecting with teenagers is worth reading. Thanks, Tom. I love rubbing it in the face of my Nebraska friends that I'm from Boston, but I got to work up close with Tom Osborne. So whatever. All right. Here's the deal. This is a system, value up culture building system. I hate calling it a system because that brings up a lot of feelings for educators, right? Because you've probably been a part of other things that, were brought into the school that was supposed to save the day and, be the end all be all of culture or whatever. And, that stuff's probably sitting on a shelf somewhere. I don't want my material, my stuff to be on a shelf. And I already know that you guys are incredibly overloaded. So I don't want to overload you with more stuff. There may be a little bit of work at the beginning of this, but my idea is that by the end of this, when it's implemented, your workload is going to get less and less because the kids are going to do a lot of it for you, which will make sense as we get going. I want to show you this is a picture of my hockey team, and I'm showing this for a reason. A couple of years ago, I was on a beer league in Omaha and had a blast. I mean, I loved playing hockey. We're not very good at it. None of these guys really are. We're all on the same level. The whole league is, we're a novice level. And so most of these guys did not play in high school or anything. And so we just have fun, right? And we get after it, and it's a pretty good time. I don't know, about 10th year I was doing it. A guy came down from Canada. He was somebody's brother-in-law, and he was like, hey, I've been watching you guys. Can I help you with something? I want to give you guys a little bit of a system that's going to not overpower you and overwhelm you, that you have to remember a bunch of stuff, but just a system, a triangle system that's going to help you know what to do in certain situations. So he did. He spelled it out for us. Basically, it was a triangle system that, we were on top of each other. We were all, just basically doing all the same things. He's like, if you're left wing, do this. Your right wing, do that. Center, you do that. The D, you're pinching up too much. One, stay back. That kind of thing. It was really simple. It wasn't that hard, but we implemented it. And honest to God, we ended up dominating the league. I mean, we killed everybody. It was like 7-3, 8-2, and we won the city championship by a mile. It was crazy. And I learned something about that. I was thinking, for this, you guys are already doing a lot of really good things. You're already caring about kids and trying to connect with kids, but sometimes we get on top of each other. There's no system, right? And this is all what the Value Up culture building system is about. It's not about giving you new concepts. It's taking the concepts that you're already doing, the things you're already doing, and just putting some more intentionality to it. And so we know how to track it. We know what's going on. We can see the progress. We can see where we need help. And I think that will be a good addition to what you're already doing. That's my goal, is to be a good addition to what you're already doing. When you're talking about value, value always has a number associated with it, right? So I want you to picture every kid coming into this school with a number on their chest, right? Because it does. It comes down to a number. And this number isn't the result of a test score or ranking student academic improvement. It is an invisible number written on the chest of every student in your school, and that number, it reflects what students feel about themselves, right? That's a really important number, because this number affects you and your students more than anything. I really believe that number affects you and your teaching and where kids are at, more than anything. Behavior follows belief, and that's a huge concept of Value Up, is behavior following belief. Like we talk a lot about behavior. Behavior gets a lot of attention, right? But really what it comes down to is the belief. Does a kid believe that he has value? If there are behavior issues in your school, I will guarantee that it stems from a value issue, right? When teenagers don't feel valuable, they don't act valuable. Teens behave in ways that reflect what they believe about themselves. If they don't see their own worth, they're far less likely to behave in ways that reflect value for themselves or others. How can a person truly value or respect others if they don't value themselves? I remember the assembly programs that we had when I was in South Boston. They were ridiculous, right? We had the old hippie guy that would stand there and stare at us, and he was like, "Kids, I did drugs." And you were like, "I hope you didn't do them today." But and then we had the puppy lady that came in with her puppies, and it was like, they were doing tricks and they were supposed to impress us. We were in high school, by the way. And then they were like, these are drug-free puppies. Like, really? I didn't know they did that. But anyways, just the stupid stuff that they did. And it was all to get us to change a behavior. And I hated that because they never looked at why we were doing what we were doing, right? What was going on inside of us that made us want to do these things, right? And again, I always felt like their motive was just to get me to change behavior because they didn't like the behavior, because it didn't fit into society or it interrupted their day. But there were reasons I was rebellious. There was reasons why I had a lot of anxiety and anger in me, and you wanted me to change the anger without looking at why I was angry, and that felt very disrespectful to me. And belief impacts behavior, and behavior impacts learning. Many students have life experiences that deeply shape how they see themselves. These beliefs influence their behavior, and that behavior directly affects your classrooms, your school climate, and their willingness to engage in learning. It's easier to police a behavior than it is to help change an embedded belief. Here's the hidden challenge. Your school's academic expectations require students to invest in themselves, to believe they're worth the effort. But students only invest in themselves at the level they believe in themselves. That is why that number is important. How does self-worth affect learning? There are 5 ways, and we're going to talk about them. Number 1, self-worth shapes beliefs about ability. With a strong sense of self-worth, students are more inclined to embrace challenges rather than avoid them, seeing setbacks as opportunities to grow rather than signs of failure. Number 2, self-worth influences risk-taking and resilience. Students with low self-worth often see failure as a reflection of their inadequacy, leading them to avoid difficult tasks and challenges. In contrast, those with strong self-worth view failure as a natural part of learning and are more willing to take academic risks. Number 3, motivation is affected by how emotionally safe students feel. When students feel valued and respected, they are more likely to be emotionally secure and cognitively present. In contrast, feelings of shame, belittlement, or being unseen shift their energy towards self-protection rather than curiosity or learning. Number 4, self-worth supports autonomy and ownership. Students will have internal motivation rooted in personal growth, curiosity, and meaningful goals rather than just grades or external praise. With a strong sense of self-worth, they rely less on validation from others and are more inclined to set and pursue their own goals, staying committed even without constant reinforcement or approval. Number 5, learning feels meaningful when you believe you matter. This sense of value increases engagement. Students who believe they matter are more likely to see their learning as meaningful, connecting education to their identity, purpose, and future goals. In summary, when students believe they have intrinsic value, they are more motivated to learn. Self-worth fuels confidence, reduces fear of failure, increases resilience, and encourages ownership of the learning process. It creates a foundation where motivation thrives, not just for achievement, but for growth, curiosity, and lifelong learning. Hopefully this gives you a better picture on why promoting value, individual intrinsic value in students is going to help you in the long run. Kids are going to be more engaged in school. They're going to want to be there. And so thank you so much for going through this. I want to show you a little bit about how this is going to work. We're going to do an assembly. And if we've already done an assembly in your school, then we'll be doing our second year program. And then from there, we kind of go around this circle here. I'm going to be working with individual teachers. We're going to call them the Value Up Impact Team. And there's 4 or 5 teachers in the building. And if you want to be one of those, I would get a hold of your administration as soon as possible. But basically, we're going to work with them, kind of coach them. In fact, I just got off a phone call a few minutes ago with one of the schools that I'm working with, just walking them through some of the pitfalls, some of the things that they may run into with this system. The second part, if you keep going around the circle here, is general staff training. That's what you're in now. Really, what's the big part of what's required of you is to go through this course. And it's going to probably take you 3 hours altogether, and probably not even that. But basically, you're going to be learning about what this culture looks like, what this culture building program looks like, and how we're going to approach it. We are definitely going to work with student leaders. We want to impact the impactors, right? We want to influence the influencers. So we need to find out who those kids are and work directly with them, and that'll make more sense as we go. As far as sports teams and clubs, there'll be a little splash of value in those. We're going to be talking about some ways in practices and in some of the club meetings that we can promote the value up message. In academics, it's really not going to invade that world, but occasionally there'll be, like once a month, a theme, a lesson. Every month, Value Up's going to have a theme in the school. We'll have posters that'll go along with that theme, but there'll be one teaching, like a during a homeroom time, or I don't want to project how you're going to do it as a school because it's different in every school, but there'll be a 15-minute teaching from me and then a discussion time with the students. And again, just to get that value up message in the bloodstream of the school. And then the next thing we want to do is really try to impact the parents. I really want to help parents understand the pressure young people are facing today and why there's such a conflict between trying to please the adult world and trying to please their social world as well. Thank you so much again for going through this course. And I really believe that, we're going to help you do what you're already doing. You're already doing great things, and we just want to make it more intentional and put some tracking to it so we know kind of what's happening. I want to let you know also that you'll get a PDF with this, and some of the stuff on the PDF is going to be a little different than what you're learning on the videos, vice versa. So go through that PDF, look at it, take the survey. Actually, you have to take the survey. Sorry about that, but at the end of every lesson, there's a little survey, 5-question survey, that just to, we know that you went through the course, and so you have that knowledge in you. One last time, I want to say this again. Thank you for doing what you do. You have a really incredibly tough job, and I am privileged to be a part of that. I don't have a cape on my back. I'm not a savior. I'm not trying to save a school or whatever. I just want to help you be the most, impactful you can be. So I will see you in the next lesson, and hopefully you got a lot out of this, but we'll see you soon. All right, bye.